Princess Arian walked silently along the polished corridors of the Celestara, the grand Vothri royal ship that glided through the blackness of space. The corridors were wide and bright, lined with walls that shimmered softly with light. She had always admired the technology of her people, but today she felt restless. Today, she was not the royal princess. Today, she wanted to see life outside her strict world. Her advisors had warned her repeatedly. Humans were unpredictable, they said. Their ways were strange. They did not understand honor, duty, or power the way the Vothri did. Princess Arian had listened politely, but curiosity had grown inside her. She wanted to see for herself what humans were like. As she walked, her mind wandered to the stories she had heard. Humans were small and fragile, yet somehow they could survive on worlds where nothing else could. They laughed at danger. They cried at beauty. They built things that moved, spoke, and sometimes even sang. How could creatures so weak survive in the universe? The thought made her frown. The Celestar was visiting a human ship for diplomacy. Human representatives had come to discuss shared resources, trade of star minerals, and the possibility of research collaboration. Princess Arian had attended meetings before, always in the grand chamber with her advisors by her side. But the chamber was formal and cold. Here in the corridors, away from the eyes of her people, she felt free. She turned a corner and saw a door slightly open. It was a small, simple door. She knew it led to a human's personal quarters. Normally, she would have turned away. Royal protocol was strict. Never enter without permission. But something about the room called to her. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the soft hum of life she could feel through the walls. With a small breath, she stepped inside. The room was nothing like her royal chambers. It was small and filled with objects she had never seen before. Small pictures were taped to the walls. A few books lay open on a desk. Tiny glowing devices blinked softly on a shelf. In one corner, a small plant reached toward the artificial light. Everything seemed alive, personal, and yet unimportant to anyone but its owner. Arian's eyes wandered across the room. She felt a strange emotion she could not name. It was calm and warm. It was different from the pride she always carried. She stepped further inside, careful not to touch anything. Suddenly, movement startled her. A young human was sitting on the edge of the bed. He had messy brown hair and soft eyes. He looked at her with surprise. Who are you?" he asked, voice low and careful. "I am Princess Arian of the Vothri Empire," she said, her voice calm but firm. I did not mean to enter. I took a wrong turn." The human blinked and then laughed softly. "You're the princess?" he asked. "I didn't. I wasn't expecting a royal visitor in my room. Usually they visit the grand chambers. Not this." Arian studied him. He seemed ordinary, not powerful, not commanding. Yet there was something in his eyes that made her pause. He was alert, curious, and unafraid. That was strange. She had expected fear. She had expected awe. "I did not mean any disrespect," she said. "Your room? It is. Different." The human smiled faintly. "Different can be good," he said. "I like it this way. Makes it feel like home." Arian stepped closer to the small desk. She noticed the books and the drawings. One drawing caught her attention. It was of a bright sky filled with stars, labeled with names she did not recognize. Beneath the stars were small lines, as if someone had written a story about them. "What is this?" she asked. The human looked at the paper and shrugged. "I like to imagine the stars. Sometimes I give them names. Sometimes I write stories. Makes the universe feel less lonely." Arian felt something stir inside her. In her life, stars were points on a map. Coordinates, navigation, power. To this human, they were stories, dreams, and hope. The thought was foreign and fascinating. "You imagine," she asked. "You make stories about the universe?" "Yes," he said. "It helps me think, helps me sleep, helps me remember that even if I am far from home, the stars are the same everywhere. Erin walked closer to the small plant in the corner. Its leaves were bright and green. She reached out, but stopped before touching it. "It is alive," she said softly. "How do you keep it here in this small room with no sunlight?" The human smiled. "I water it. I talk to it. I make sure it gets light from the lamps. Life doesn't always need the perfect place to grow. It just needs care." Ariane looked at him. For centuries, she had learned that power was control. Strength was dominance. Survival meant superiority. But here in this small human room, she saw something different. Strength was patience. Power was care. Survival was hope. Time passed, though she did not notice. The door remained closed because of a temporary fault in the ship's security system. They were alone together, sharing the quiet space. Ariane asked him more about his life. He told her about his family on Earth, about storms that scared him and rain that made him laugh. He told her about friends who argued but always returned. He spoke of music and stories, simple things that humans held dear. Ariane listened in silence. She had never heard anything like it. For the first time, she wondered if her people had misunderstood humans. They were not weak. They were not reckless. They were alive, fully and completely. Every small act, every small joy carried meaning. Every human action was tied to hope, care, or love. That was power she had never known. She asked him a question she had never asked any being. "Do you ever fear the universe?" He thought for a moment. "Of course I do. The universe is big. Sometimes it is lonely. Sometimes it is scary. But fear doesn't stop me. It reminds me to take care, to notice beauty, to keep moving." Erin absorbed his words. Fear as strength, hope as power. She had never thought of it this way. Her life had been measured in victories, commands, and obedience. But this human, simple and ordinary, had shown her another path. As night came to the room, through the artificial lights, Ariane realized she had learned something vital. She had come out of curiosity. She had entered by accident. But what she found was more than curiosity. She found understanding. She found a new vision of strength. She found life beyond her royal duties. The human yawned and stretched. "I think I should sleep," he said. "It's been a long shift," Ariane nodded. "Yes, I should leave soon as well." She stood by the door, reluctant to go. She did not want to leave this small room. It's a strange place where she had felt something new. Before leaving, she looked at the human one last time. "Thank you," she said, "for showing me something I did not know," smiled softly. "Sometimes all it takes is a little curiosity." Ariane stepped back and left the room. She did not call the guards. She did not report the incident. She walked back through the corridor silently, her mind alive with thoughts. The stars outside the ship's windows seemed different now, brighter, full of stories waiting to be understood. That night, Princess Ariane could not sleep in her royal quarters. She remembered the small plant, the books, the stories, the human. She realized that life was more than power. It was connection. It was hope. It was care. And somehow, she knew that the accidental visit to that human's room would change her forever. From that day forward, Ariane began to see humans differently. Not as creatures to be controlled or studied, but as beings to be understood and respected. She began to wonder if the galaxy had been wrong about them all along, and somewhere, in that quiet room, far across the corridors, a human slept peacefully, unaware that his simple life had touched the heart of an alien princess. The next morning, Princess Ariane woke before dawn. She sat on the edge of her royal bed, staring at the soft glow of the stars outside the window. Her thoughts returned to the human named Leo. His room, his stories, his care for small things, all of it stayed in her mind. She realized that she wanted to see him again, to understand more about humans and the life they lived, even if it meant stepping outside the strict rules of her world. The Celestara hummed softly as it traveled through the void. Outside, the galaxy stretched in endless black, dotted with stars that reminded her of Leo's drawings. She felt a strange mix of curiosity and admiration. How could a single human, so ordinary and unarmed, possess such strength of spirit? She had seen warriors, leaders, and scholars, but none had moved her the way Leo did. By mid-morning, she found herself wandering the corridors once again. The royal advisors were busy in meetings, unaware of her absence. The ship felt quiet and safe, yet every step she took toward the human quarters felt like a small rebellion. Erin had always been careful, always precise, but now she walked without certainty, guided only by curiosity and a desire to understand. When she reached the human's door, she hesitated. She did not want to intrude or frighten him. At the same time, she could not resist seeing him again. She tapped lightly, and the door slid open. Leo was already awake, sitting at his desk, scribbling in a small notebook. He looked up and blinked. "Good morning," he said softly. His voice was calm, but his eyes held a spark of surprise. "I wasn't expecting visitors." Rianne stepped inside. "I wanted to see you again," she admitted. "I hope I am not disturbing you." "You're not disturbing me," Leo said with a small smile. "I was just writing. Would you like to see what I do?" Arian nodded. She moved closer to the desk and looked at the drawings and writings. She noticed sketches of machines, planets, and strange creatures. Each one was labeled with human words she did not understand at first, but the meaning was clear. Each drawing told a story. "Why do you draw all of this?" she asked. Leo leaned back in his chair. "Humans like to record what they see and feel. Sometimes we remember things we want to understand. Sometimes we dream of what we want to build. And sometimes we just want to imagine something beautiful." Ariane studied the sketches. She had seen maps and plans before, but these were different. They were full of emotion, of thought, of life. She realized humans did not just survive in the universe. They created meaning wherever they went. "Can you show me more?" she asked quietly. Leo hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, but you must promise not to laugh or judge. Humans sometimes feel nervous when others see what we care about." "I promise," Arian said. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt excitement. She was discovering a new side of life, one that was not ruled by power or duty, but by curiosity and care. For hours, Leo showed her his drawings, his small inventions, and the tiny projects he built. He explained each one with care, showing her how humans could make life better, even in small ways. Arian listened, fascinated. Each explanation revealed the patience and thoughtfulness humans carried in their hearts. Each story showed her a strength she had never understood. At one point, Leo picked up the small plant from the corner. "Do you want to see something interesting?" he asked. Arian nodded. He placed the plant on the desk and touched a small device next to it. A soft light glowed, and the plant seemed to grow slightly, its leaves stretching toward the light. "This is my way of helping it grow," Leo said. "Humans cannot control everything, but we can give care where it matters. Life finds a way if we help it." Arian's eyes widened. She had seen power used to control, to destroy, to command. But here, in a small human room, she saw power used to nurture. She felt something stir inside her, a realization that strength could be quiet, gentle, and patient. As the day passed, they spoke of many things. Leo told her about his home on Earth, about the green fields, the oceans, and the storms that rolled across the sky. He spoke of humans' joys and fears, of the things they cherished most. Arian asked questions, each one opening her mind further. She began to see humans not as creatures to fear or dismiss, but as beings with wisdom hidden in simplicity at one point. She noticed a small device on the desk, glowing softly. "What is this?" she asked. Leo smiled. "It's a communicator. I can speak to my friends on Earth with it. We can share thoughts, ideas, even music. Humans like to connect. We cannot live alone in the universe. We need each other." Arian considered this. The Vothri were proud and self-reliant, but she realized that pride could become loneliness. Humans found strength not just in themselves, but in the bonds they formed with others. That was a lesson she had never learned in her royal lessons. Hours later, the ship experienced turbulence as it passed through a dense asteroid field. The walls shuddered slightly, and lights flickered. Arian noticed that Leo remained calm, his hands steady as he adjusted instruments. She felt fear for the first time in a long while, but she also noticed his calmness. Humans could face danger with courage and clarity. That was another strength she had not expected. When the turbulence passed, she spoke softly. "You do not fear?" "I do," he admitted. "But fear does not stop me. It tells me to be careful, to act, to protect what matters. Fear is not weakness. It is guidance." Irene reflected on this. Her people had always believed that fear was to be hidden, that it showed weakness. But this human had shown her that fear could be a teacher, a guide toward courage. She felt her understanding of life shift. Slowly and profoundly, the day passed into evening, and the artificial lights of the ship dimmed to a soft glow. Leo prepared a small meal, simple but warm. Arian had never eaten such food before. She tasted it carefully, noticing the effort and care he had put into it. It was nourishing, but more than that, it was a symbol of life itself. Humans did not just survive, they shared, they gave, they nurtured. After the meal, they sat near the window. Outside, stars sparkled like diamonds on black velvet. Aria noticed how different the stars felt from the cold maps she had studied. Here, they were alive, full of possibility, full of stories waiting to be told. "Do you ever think about the stars like this?" she asked. Leo nodded. "All the time. They are more than points in space. They are reminders of what we can do, what we can hope for. Every star is a chance to learn, to grow, to dream." Arian watched him, feeling something she could not name. It was admiration, yes, but also a deep respect. This human, so ordinary and small, carried the universe in his heart. That was strength beyond measure. As night deepened, she realized she had learned more in one day than in years of royal lessons. She had learned patience, care, courage, and hope. She had learned that power was not just domination, but connection. She had learned that humans, so simple and fragile, possessed a strength that could change the universe. Finally, she rose to leave. "I should return to my quarters," she said softly. Leo smiled faintly. "I understand, but I am glad you came. Not many take the time to see the small things." Aria nodded. She stepped toward the door, but before leaving, she spoke a thought that had formed in her heart. "I think I will return. There is more to learn from you and from humans than I realized." Leo looked at her in surprise, then smiled. "I would like that. I can show you more, if you wish." Alian felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time, she looked forward to learning not from books or teachers, but from life itself, from the humans who lived and breathed, who laughed and dreamed, who faced fear with courage. That night, as she returned to her royal quarters, she could not sleep. The images of the room, the plant, the stories, and the humans stayed in her mind. She realized that the accidental visit had become intentional in her heart. She wanted to see, to learn, and to understand more. Humans had opened a door not just in the ship, but in her mind and her soul, and somewhere. In the quiet corridors of the Celestara, the human named Leo slept peacefully, unaware that he had already begun to change an alien princess forever. The next day, Princess Arian awoke with a sense of anticipation. The lessons of the previous day still echoed in her mind. She felt a new curiosity growing inside her, one that was impossible to ignore. Today, she wanted to understand more about the human world, not from observation or stories, but by experiencing it directly with Leo. After her morning preparations, she made her way to the corridors leading to his quarters. She walked with care, not wanting to draw attention from her advisors. Her steps were light, her heart quick with excitement. She had never moved through the ship like this before. She felt a mix of freedom and nervousness. When she arrived at Leo's door, she tapped lightly. The door slid open, and she saw him at the small workstation he had been building for a personal project. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Princess," he said with a hint of amusement. "I wasn't expecting visitors so early." I wanted to learn more, Arian replied. Her voice was calm, but she could feel the eagerness in her chest. There is much I do not understand about humans, and I wish to see more, Leo nodded. Then I can show you. Follow me. He led her to a small corner of the ship where there were personal human spaces. He had prepared a small area with equipment that allowed him to study plants, water cycles, and even small artificial gravity experiments. Each device was modest, yet it demonstrated ingenuity and thoughtfulness. Arian watched with fascination. Humans built not for show, but for purpose. This is how I test ideas, Leo explained. Humans do not always have grand machines or powerful tools. Sometimes we work with what we have. We find solutions in small ways. Arian studied the devices. Her people built enormous ships with massive energy outputs and complex systems. Yet she realized that humans, with smaller means, could achieve outcomes that required creativity and patience. It was a different kind of power. She picked up a small tool. This is simple, she said. How does it help? Leo smiled. Simplicity is strength. This tool lets me observe how plants react to light and water. I can adjust small variables and learn from them. Humans often learn best by doing, not just by studying or commanding. Arian felt a spark of admiration. She realized that humans were not reckless. They were observant, thoughtful, and willing to learn through trial and care. She had been trained to value authority and immediate results, but here she saw patience and reflection as true strength. Hours passed as Leo demonstrated different experiments. He showed her how water could move through small pipes to nourish plants, how light could encourage growth, and how careful observation could reveal patterns that were invisible at first glance. Arian followed every step, asking questions and making observations of her own. She realized she was learning more about life in these few hours than she had in years of royal lessons. At one point, Leo paused and looked at her seriously. Do you ever think about why your people fear humans? He asked. Arian hesitated. We have been taught that humans are unpredictable, that they can act without reason, that their weaknesses make them dangerous. Leo shook his head. They are not dangerous because they are weak. They are strong because they care. They survive because they hope. Strength does not always look like weapons or control. Sometimes it is patience, curiosity, and understanding. Arian considered his words. She had believed that strength was dominance, that power meant command. But here, in a small human corner of the ship, she saw a different kind of power, one that could endure, inspire, and create as the day continued. Leo showed her more of his personal life. He had small trinkets from his home, letters from friends, and photographs of landscapes she could barely imagine. She looked at each item with wonder. Each small thing carried memory, care, and effort. Humans preserve their lives not with grand statements, but with attention to small details. Arian realized that she had been blind to this in her own life. Her royal duties had demanded focus on power, ceremony, and protocol. She had never seen the value in small joys or personal care. Now, she began to understand that humanity's strength lay not in grandeur, but in the depth of their connection to life. The conversation shifted to stories. Leo spoke of nights under open skies on his homeworld, of forests filled with whispering winds, of rivers that sang to those who listened. Arian listened intently, imagining the sounds, the smells, the life that humans embraced so fully. She had studied planets in books and charts, but now she felt them through someone else's eyes. This is your way of seeing the world, she said softly. Through stories and memory? Yes, he replied. We carry our world in our hearts. Even far from home, we remember it, and it shapes how we live. Strength grows when you honor what matters, even in the smallest ways. Arian nodded. She felt a deep respect for the human before her. His life was simple, yet it held a richness she had never known. She realized that humans had built their survival not only on technology or numbers, but on care, creativity, and hope. Later, they took a small walk to the observation deck of the ship. Outside, The galaxy stretched endlessly. Stars sparkled like diamonds, and distant planets glimmered with faint light. Arian pointed to a distant blue world. "Do you see that planet?" she asked. "Humans might call it Earth. It is where Leo is from." Leo nodded. "Yes, it is home. It reminds me why we keep moving forward, why we keep learning. Even when the universe feels big and dangerous, home and hope give us reason to continue." Arian felt a shift in her understanding. Her people had always valued conquest, territory, and control. Humans valued life, care, and connection. Both were forms of strength. But the latter carried resilience and meaning that power alone could not provide. On the deck, they watched as distant ships passed by. Arian asked about each one, learning how humans navigated, communicated, and cooperated across vast distances. Leo explained in simple terms, showing her that humans thrived not because of sheer force, but because of cooperation, trust, and clever thinking. As the day turned to evening, they returned to the small room. Leo prepared a simple meal again, and they ate together. Arian tasted the warmth of human food, the comfort of shared space, and the ease of conversation without ceremony. She realized she had never experienced this in her royal life. Meals had always been formal, quiet, and full of expectation. Here, food was connection, nourishment, and joy. After the meal, Arian sat near the small plant again. She reached out and touched a leaf gently. "This plant. It is alive because of your care," she said. Leo smiled. "Yes. Life responds to attention. Even the smallest act of care can change everything. Strength is not always visible, but it is present." Arian pondered his words. She realized that humans had taught her a lesson her royal training never could. Power could be measured in numbers and weapons, but true strength was in life, connection, and hope. As night fell, Arian felt a sense of calm she had never known. The stars outside the window seemed alive with possibility, full of stories waiting to be told. She understood that she had been given a gifted view of the universe through the eyes of a human who lived fully, cared deeply, and faced the unknown with courage. Before leaving, she looked at Leo and said softly, "I will return. There is more to learn, and I wish to understand fully. You have shown me that life is stronger than I imagined." Leo nodded. "And I will show you, Princess. There is more than you can see if you are willing to learn." That night, Princess Arian returned to her royal quarters. She could not sleep, for her mind was alive with ideas, images, and realizations. She began to see her people and the humans in a new light. She understood that strength was not only in command, but in care, patience, and the courage to live fully. Somewhere in the quiet ship, Leo slept peacefully, unaware that he had changed the heart of a princess. Through his small room, his quiet life, and his thoughtful ways, he had taught Orion lessons no book, counsel, or ceremony could convey. And Princess Ariane knew that her accidental visit was no longer accidental. It was the beginning of a journey that would shape her understanding, her decisions, and perhaps even the fate of her people. The next morning, Princess Ariane awoke with a sense of purpose. Her mind was no longer filled with mere curiosity. She wanted to understand humans not only as individuals, but as a people whose strength and resilience challenged everything she had believed. The lessons from Leo's room had become more than insights. They were guiding her thoughts and shaping her heart. After her morning preparations, she walked silently through the corridors of the Celestara. Her advisors were gathered in the grand chamber for routine discussions, unaware that the princess had slipped away. She felt a thrill of freedom mixed with responsibility. Every step toward Leo's quarters felt like a choice that could change her life and perhaps the future of her people. When she reached the familiar door, Leo opened it with his usual calm smile. "Good morning, Princess," he said. "I did not expect you so early. I wanted to continue our conversations," Arian replied. "There is much I wish to learn, and the previous days have shown me that understanding humans requires more than observation." Leo nodded. "Then come with me. Today, I want to show you how humans face challenges, not with weapons, but with creativity, care, and cooperation. Aran followed him to a small experimental area of the ship where Leo had prepared simulations of human problems. Each setup represented a challenge humans might face on unfamiliar worlds. Arian watched as he demonstrated solutions that required thought, patience, and ingenuity. Humans adapted quickly, using limited resources to overcome obstacles. Their strength was not in force, but in flexibility and teamwork. "This is different from your people's approach," Leo asked. "Yes," Arian admitted. "The Vothri rely on command, control, and power. We do not often rely on creativity or patience alone. Yet I see that humans succeed because they understand life in ways we have ignored." Leo smiled. "Strength is not always about domination. Sometimes it is about survival, adaptation, and understanding. Humans face fear and danger not by eliminating it, but by learning from it and working together." Arian watched as Leo set up a simulation with small robotic devices. The robots faced a series of obstacles. Leo adjusted their paths and timing carefully, showing her how humans would solve a problem not by force, but by thought. Arian realized that this required a discipline and attention to detail she had never valued before. Humans were strong, not because they commanded, but because they observed, adapted, and persisted. Hours passed as they worked through the simulations. Arian asked questions constantly, each one leading to new insights. She began to see that human strength came from balanza, a combination of thought, emotion, and effort. She wondered why her people had dismissed such abilities as weakness. During a break, they walked to the observation deck. The vastness of space stretched around them. Stars twinkled with distant brilliance, and a cluster of planets shimmered in the distance. Arian pointed to a planet bathed in blue light. "Is this your home, Leo?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "It is Earth. It is not perfect, but it is where we learn, grow, and care for each other. It is what makes us strong." Arian thought about her own homeworld and how it demanded obedience and ceremony over personal understanding. She realized that humans had found a way to survive in a harsh universe not by fear or dominance, but through cooperation, hope, and resilience. That lesson had begun to take root in her heart. When they returned to Leo's room, Aria noticed a small communication device blinking softly. "Do humans often communicate like this?" she asked. "Yes," Leo said. "We share ideas, ask questions, and help each other, even across great distances. Communication is strength. Knowledge shared is power, but it is a power that builds life rather than destroys it." Ariane thought of her people and their strict hierarchy. Orders were given, and obedience was expected. Humans, by contrast, built strength from understanding, shared knowledge, and mutual care. The realization made her heart race. She wanted to learn more, to see how this philosophy applied beyond simulations and small experiments. Leo stood and gestured toward a small table. "I want to show you how humans face real challenges. We have an exercise called problem solving under pressure. It tests patience, judgment, and cooperation." Rian followed, intrigued. He set up a scenario where they needed to repair a life support system with limited tools and time. She watched as he assessed the situation, considered each option, and acted carefully. Every choice had consequences, and every action was deliberate. "You see," Leo said, "humans do not act recklessly. We consider, adjust, and learn. Even when mistakes happen, we adapt. That is how we survive." Rian helped with the task, following his instructions. She realized that she had never approached a problem this way. In her world, decisions were made quickly and orders executed without question. Here, success depended on thought, flexibility, and collaboration. She felt a new respect for humans growing in her heart. As the exercise ended successfully, Arian felt a surge of admiration. "You make it seem easy," she said. Leo shook his head. "It is not easy. It takes patience, observation, and care. Strength is quiet, and it is earned, not demanded." Arian reflected on this. Her people believed strength was shown through command and fear. Humans showed strength through life, understanding, and persistence. She realized that what she had learned from Leo's room was only the beginning. The lessons of humanity were vast, and she wanted to explore them fully. Later, they walked through the corridors, discussing human history. Leo spoke of triumphs and failures, inventions and discoveries, struggles and victories. Arian listened, fascinated. Every story revealed resilience, courage, and wisdom she had never appreciated. Humans faced the universe not as conquerors, but as learners, builders, and dreamers. By evening, Rian began to see her role in a new light. Her people's assumptions about humans had been flawed. She realized that understanding and cooperation could be a form of power far greater than domination. The small room, the plant, the stories, and the shared meals had all begun to change her perspective. Leo noticed her thoughtful expression. "Princess, are you okay?" He asked. "Yes," she replied softly. "I am thinking, humans teach more than I expected. I see now that there is strength in life itself, in patience, in care, and in hope. Your people may be small, but your spirit is vast." Leo smiled. "And you have the power to bring that understanding to your people. Sometimes one perspective can change many minds." Rian considered this. She had always believed her influence was limited to royal decrees and ceremonies. Now she understood that real influence came from understanding, empathy, and shared knowledge. She felt a sense of purpose growing within her. That night, Arian returned to her quarters. She could not sleep, for her mind was alive with thoughts and reflections. She thought of the exercises, the stories, the small acts of care, and the courage humans carried in their daily lives. She realized that the accidental visit to Leo's room had become the beginning of a profound journey. She wondered how her advisors would react if she began to speak of understanding humans rather than controlling them. Would they listen? Would they mock her? Yet she knew that the lessons she had learned could not be ignored. Humanity had shown her a path of strength that her people had overlooked. For hours, she reviewed every detail of her day, replaying conversations and observations in her mind. She understood that she had begun to see the universe differently. Humans were not weak or reckless. They were creators, learners, and survivors. Their strength was in the small acts that built life, hope, and connection. Finally, Arian allowed herself to rest. Yet even as she closed her eyes, her thoughts returned to Leo and the quiet power he had shown. She knew that the journey was far from over. She had seen only a glimpse of what humanity could teach, and she was determined to learn more. Somewhere in the quiet corridors, Leo slept peacefully, unaware that his simple life, his care for small things, his patient teaching had begun to transform the mind of an alien princess. And Princess Ariane knew that the lessons of humans would not remain in her heart alone. They would influence her decisions, her views, and perhaps even the future of her people. She had learned that strength was not only in power, command, or fear, but in patience, understanding, courage, and care. And in that quiet moment, she vowed that the knowledge she gained would be shared, not hidden. Humanity had shown her the way, and she would carry their lessons forward, no matter how difficult the path might become. The next morning, Princess Ariane awoke with a sense of clarity she had never felt before. Her time with Leo had opened her mind to a world she had barely understood. The lessons of patience, care, and resilience were no longer abstract. They were alive within her. Today, she would take what she had learned and see how it could change not only her perspective, but the future of her people. After leaving her quarters, she moved quietly through the corridors, her steps purposeful yet careful. The advisors were in the grand chamber, preparing for a meeting with human representatives about joint exploration of a nearby star system. Ariane had observed the council before. She knew that her people approached humans with caution, suspicion, and sometimes disdain. But she no longer shared their fear. She had seen strength in humanity that her people had ignored for centuries. She reached Leo's room and knocked lightly. The door opened to reveal him at his small workstation, tinkering with a delicate device. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Princess. You seem determined today." "I am," she said. "I have learned much from you, and I wish to take these lessons further. I want to understand humans fully, and I want to show my people what I have discovered." Leo's eyes widened slightly with surprise. That is a bold goal, but I believe you can do it. Humans value honesty, cooperation, and curiosity. If you approach them with respect, they will respond in kind. Ariane nodded. She felt a surge of confidence. The accidental visit to his room had grown into intentional study, and now she was ready to act with purpose. Together, they reviewed the plans for the day, which included a demonstration of human problem-solving techniques and a tour of the human ship's unique technologies. As they walked to the meeting chamber, Ariane reflected on the past days. She remembered the plant that grew under Leo's care, the small experiments, the shared meals, and the stories. Each moment had shown her a facet of human life that she had never understood. They were simple yet complex, fragile yet strong, ordinary yet extraordinary when they entered the chamber. The human representatives greeted her formally, unaware of the transformation she had undergone. Her advisors looked at her with curiosity and mild concern. Princess Ariane had always followed protocol, and her sudden independent actions were unusual. The meeting began, but Ariane's attention was focused on demonstrating the lessons she had learned. She spoke calmly and clearly, explaining how humans approach challenges with patience, observation, and cooperation. She described the ways humans built life and hope. Even in difficult circumstances, her words were different from the usual formal speeches of the Vothri. They were filled with understanding and respect. The human representatives listened closely, impressed by her insight. Ariane noticed their faces soften as she spoke. They recognized honesty and genuine respect, qualities that resonated deeply with them. Her advisors shifted uncomfortably. They were accustomed to commanding humans, not learning from them. Yet they could not deny the wisdom in her words. Princess Ariane described examples from Leo's room without naming him, illustrating how even small acts of care could demonstrate strength greater than force. Strength, she said, is not always measured in power or control. True strength is patience, resilience, and the courage to understand life in all its forms. Humans have taught me this, and I believe it can guide our cooperation in ways we have never imagined. The room was silent for a moment. Then one of the human representatives, a woman named Mara, spoke. Your Highness, your words honor humanity. We have long sought understanding from the Vothri, and it seems you are leading the way. This approach could change the way our species interact and work together. Ariane nodded. She felt a quiet pride. Her accidental visit had become purposeful, and now she was sharing the lessons with both humans and her own people. She realized that understanding and respect could achieve what force and command never could. After the meeting, she walked with Leo to a quiet part of the ship. Thank you, she said. You have shown me more than I could have imagined. Your life, your care, your patience, all of it has changed me. Leo smiled gently. You did not need me to change. You chose to see, to learn, and to act. That is your strength, Princess. Humans can teach, but only if someone is willing to understand. Ariane reflected on this. She realized that her growth was not just about learning from humans, but about making choices. She had chosen to open her mind, to challenge assumptions, and to embrace new ideas. That was true courage, and it was more powerful than any weapon or decree. Over the next weeks, Princess Ariane continued to spend time with Leo, observing human life, sharing stories, and learning their ways. She saw how they approached challenges with creativity, how they built bonds of trust, and how they faced fear with courage. Each day deepened her respect and admiration. Her advisors noticed the change. She spoke differently, listened more, and encouraged dialogue rather than orders. Some were skeptical, but many began to see the wisdom in her approach. Humans responded positively, sensing her sincerity and openness. The transformation reached a turning point during a joint mission to a distant planet rich in resources, but fraught with hazards. Previous expeditions had relied solely on Vothri technology and command structures, often ignoring human suggestions. Ariane, however, encouraged collaboration. She listened to human ideas, considered their observations, integrated their approaches with Vothri strategies. The result was remarkable. Obstacles that had previously delayed exploration were overcome efficiently. The humans' creative problem-solving and adaptability complemented the Vothri's strength and precision. Princess Ariane saw firsthand that respect and cooperation could achieve far more than control alone. When they returned to the ship, the council convened to discuss the mission. Ariane spoke first, explaining how humans and Vothri had worked together. She emphasized the lessons she had learned: patience, understanding, and the courage to embrace new ideas. Her words resonated deeply. The council recognized that a new path was possible, one where humans and Vothri could learn from each other, build together, and face the universe as partners rather than rivals. Later, in private, Ariane reflected on her journey. The accidental visit to Leo's room had changed her in ways she could never have predicted. She had discovered that strength was not always visible, that power could take the form of care and understanding, and that true leadership required humility and openness. She thought of Leo, of his small experiments, his stories, and his quiet courage. He had not tried to impress her or gain recognition. He had simply lived fully, shared his knowledge, and cared deeply. That simple life had become a teacher to a princess and, through her, to an entire empire. Ariane realized that her role was no longer just that of a royal observer. She was now a bridge between species, a guide who could show her people the value of respect, understanding, and collaboration. Humanity had taught her that even small acts could have profound impact. She vowed to carry those lessons forward. In the following months, the relationship between humans and Vothri began to change. Collaborative missions increased, research projects flourished, and exchanges of knowledge became common. Ariane's insights and leadership were instrumental in building trust and cooperation. She became known as the one who learned among humans, a title that reflected her journey from curiosity to wisdom. One evening, she visited Leo again. They stood on the observation deck, watching the galaxy stretch endlessly before them. Stars twinkled with distant brilliance, planets glimmered, and nebulae swirled in colors she had never seen. "You have changed much since our first meeting," Leo said softly. Ariane smiled. "I have learned that strength is not in power alone, but in life, in care, and in hope. Humans have shown me that even the smallest acts matter, and that courage and understanding can shape the future." Leo nodded. "And you have shown humans and your people that learning and respect can change everything. That is the power of someone willing to see beyond fear and tradition." Ariane felt a sense of completion and promise. The journey that began with an accidental visit to a human's room had grown into a path that would influence generations. She knew that the lessons she had learned were only the beginning. Humanity had changed her perspective, and through her, her people were learning too. She turned to Leo and said quietly, "Thank you for showing me life through your eyes. It has changed me forever." Leo smiled, a quiet warmth in his expression. "You chose to see, Princess. The change was yours, not mine. But I am glad I could help you discover it." As they stood together, looking at the stars, Princess Ariane understood that the universe was vast, filled with challenges and wonders. She knew that humans and Vothri could face it together, each learning from the other, each finding strength in ways they had never imagined. The accidental visit had become a journey of discovery, growth, and hope. It had shown that even the smallest actions, when guided by care and curiosity, could ripple across worlds and transform hearts. Princess Ariane had learned that true strength was not in fear or command, but in understanding, connection, and the courage to embrace life fully and somewhere. Far across the corridors of the Celestara, Leo lived his ordinary life.